Hey guys, what's up? This is JK with Elevated Recovery and the PornReboot program. Today I'm going to be talking about the difference between therapy, 12 steps, and recovery coaching. Now, before we get started, I want to announce that I am offering one-on-one recovery and accountability Skype sessions. So if you're dealing with a bad porn habit and you struggle with letting people into this part of your life, or you just feel alone in this struggle, my one-on-one sessions will help. And you can find my email address in the description below. Now, no form of recovery is perfect, guys. The tagline for Elevated Recovery is get high on life. And I came up with this because true recovery is a major lifestyle change. Now, too many guys feel that their porn addiction is a habit. So they feel that it can be replaced with something else. To successfully recover from a pornography addiction, your life literally has to change for the better, and there are no two ways about it. When choosing a method of recovery, there are 4 questions that I suggest you keep in mind. Now, the first is, which method will build a foundation for lifelong recovery? The next is, which method will connect effortlessly with other parts of your life, like your other goals, and kind of make your investments in that method worth it? The third is asking yourself that if it's a method that supports abstinence from masturbation or sex, does it have the data to support this? And finally, is the method practical? So does it make sense for the culture and the times that we live in today? Now, before I go any further, in all transparency and honesty, I'm going to warn you, this video is very partial to addiction recovery coaching, which is actually what I do. Now, another thing to actually get out of the way before we jump into it is I would like to say one thing. And this is a message to all the guys out there who are really struggling with porn and have been for many years. One of the delusions of a sex or porn addict is that they believe that they can recover on their own. I believe this as well. And I've seen it in rare cases, but I assure you that if you think that yours is a special case, you're probably wrong. It's very, very challenging to overcome your addiction on your own. Not impossible, but challenging. Now, if your habit with porn or sex is merely a nuisance, like it's just taking away time from you and disrupting your schedule, that's a different thing. If, on the other hand, porn and sex are threatening your family, your career, or your position in society, despite promising yourself and swearing that you're going to stop several times on your own, but you still find yourself compulsively engaging in that behavior, then you want to seriously consider working with another person or group of people to help you out. I once read a quote. It was on recovery, and it said, "Addicts who try to recover on their own are in very bad company." Now, with that said, let's start off with the form of recovery which has given probably the most relief to porn and sex addicts, which is therapy or counseling. Now, the goal of therapy and counseling is to find the root cause of a client's suffering and pain. So a therapist or counselor will explore different underlying causes with a client with the goal of repairing or fixing the problem. And they use a range of wonderful treatment-based solutions. And this sounds fantastic, but there is one thing to keep in mind. Addiction cannot be repaired or fixed. And what I mean is that addiction is like HIV or cancer or diabetes. It can only be contained and in some cases monitored for remission. Now, once in a while, you know how you hear stories about a guy who was cured of HIV thanks to like some stem cell transplant, or cancer cured due to repeated chemo or a great lifestyle change. Well, therapy and counseling can be very expensive as well. Over time, it takes up significant amounts of time and rarely offers a plan for building life skills and self-accountability for extending the length of time that you spend free of your addiction. Counseling can also involve less interaction with the therapist. And by this, I mean that the therapist can be viewed as an expert sometimes. So the relationship is from the top to the bottom. So with information going from like an expert to a novice. And a good example are therapists who do this, which I don't really like, but they give their clients realistic statistics, like, only 30% of addicts make it or something like that. And then they promptly blame the client when counseling fails or becomes unproductive or their relationship with the client breaks down, which happens in every method. In these cases, the porn addict then moves on to 12 steps. So they're referred to a 12-step group, and that is usually the end of their counseling or therapy treatment. But there are two exceptions. The first is actually therapeutic methods with high levels of personal accountability. And these can be very, very beneficial to a recovering porn addict. Also, men and women with certain traumas and mental health issues benefit from therapy and counseling without a doubt. So if you're interested in great counseling from therapists who are rigorously trained in treating sexual addiction, which includes porn addiction, I'm actually going to be coming out with a video of some of the people who are just fantastic at this. Next is 12-step programs. Now, for those of you who may not be sure what the 12 steps method is, it was developed by Alcoholics Anonymous, and it's a lifelong spiritual modality which relies on 12 principles to keep clients off their addictions. There's also a relationship aspect to it as well, with sponsors and those being sponsored. So basically, the member of 12 steps with more experience supports the member with less experience in the program. And I'll explain the pros and cons of using the 12-step method to recover from porn or sex addiction. Firstly, 12 steps is the default referral program in the United States justice system. This means that when jail time is not an option for someone involved in sexual offending, the recommendation is a 12-step program. So as a result, 12 steps carries the stigma of punishment. In such cases, 12 steps is either going to work for you as a punishment or it's not. Secondly, when you relapse in a 12-step program, it is usually not due to the failure of the program. The program has been around for a while. Instead, it's because the client had not yet hit rock bottom or did not follow the steps closely enough. But let me say this. Porn and sex addiction can destroy your life. The rock bottom of porn and sex addiction is usually losing your career, your family, going to prison, STDs, or death. So why on earth would any method advocate trying to get to rock bottom? Now, if you're thinking that the scenarios I described just now don't apply to you, think again. Most of the guys who ended up in the scenarios I just mentioned were not mentally ill. They weren't sociopaths and they weren't like abused as kids. They were actually regular guys who were usually exposed to porn between the ages of 8 and 14. They grew up watching porn to deal with stress or because they were bored or because they were lonely. And the next thing they knew, the entire society was looking at them with disgust and revulsion. Now finally, the 12 steps can be demotivating to people sometimes because of the stigma of being too dogmatic. So as a result, people kind of shy away from it. It's very difficult to be vulnerable to a group of strangers and submit to a higher power, as they call it. But the pros of the 12-step method is that there are a lot of groups and there are many for porn and sex addicts. 12 steps has been the path that saved the lives and led so many sexual addicts out of their addiction. So I'm not against it because I believe that sometimes anything that you can get into works. So if 12 steps is your only choice where you're at, please join a group. Just test it out. It's infinitely better than struggling with this on your own. And finally, we have recovery coaching. Now, men and women who end up in recovery coaching usually don't respond to other methods of treatment. Now, in this day and age, men and women, they kind of need assurance, like that you're not bad, that you're not sick, that you're not crazy for being dependent on porn or sex or masturbation. And men and women who have porn and sex addiction who don't believe counseling or therapy works for them and would never be caught dead in a 12-step group are in a great place to try recovery coaching. Recovery coaching is always about the present moment. and how it can affect your life in the future. Recovery coaching basically focuses on you. And some of the beliefs of recovery coaching are that you are actually the best expert on yourself. And you have the ability within you to reach your own personal goals. You are self-reliant, which will lead you, of course, to a life free of pornography and sexual compulsion or sexual addiction. Now, when you compare it to therapy, counseling, or 12 steps, recovery coaching basically has the belief that there are many paths to recovery. There's no one-size-fits-all solution. You are unique and you are a whole individual. You're not a collection of damaged parts that need to be fixed or repaired. So recovery coaching is a conversation during which a coach helps you identify whatever obstacles are standing in the way of your goals and your dreams. So basically what a recovery coach does is that they challenge your beliefs, and at the same time they find different ways to get you to your goal, but they also inspire you to take action. And it's very solution focused and educational. So instead of focusing on your problems, we focus on your solutions. Some guys are very surprised to find out that your time with a recovery coach could be as short as 6 weeks, but it could have powerful impacts over a 12-month period. So those are the main differences between the 3 main types of addiction recovery. Again, if you need to reach out to me for one-on-one Skype sessions, all you need to do is use my email address in the description. If you enjoyed this video, please share it and also subscribe to our YouTube channel.